All right, so we're going to write down 8 points today. We're going to look at the functions and dysfunctions of deviance. Again, this is kind of like, reflecting upon that concept of abortion there. Deviance is a bad thing, but a lot of times when we think about deviance, we get emotionally involved, right? It's kind of like the justification for deviance that we looked at yesterday of retribution. For the longest time in history, people look at deviance as a sinful nature. As a sociologist, you really got to separate yourself from it. It's not necessarily a bad thing, and that's very difficult for us to do because when we see it, we're like, man, something's got to be done about it. But we've got to separate ourselves from it. So we're going to look at the functions to start off with. The functions of deviance. So you remember the three theoretical perspectives we look at the beginning of the semester with sociology? One was the conflict perspective. One was the functionalist perspective, right? Seeing how things are functioning. What was the third one? I remember the third one. The third one says that life is just a stage, and we are just actors on it. It's all about role playing. It is symbolic interactionism. Very good. Symbolic interaction. So this one's focused on functionalism, of course. Okay. So the question is, can deviance be actually useful to society as a whole? And we got to assume yes after our notes today. Number one, clarification of norms. What is a function of deviance? Is a clarification of norms. Deviance is needed to define the limits of permissible behavior. The existence of rule breakers remind us that what the rules are. And I think I've referenced this before. You guys think back to your elementary school classes. You got that one kid that always broke the rules. They were always on the fringe. They were always on the, kind of pushing the limits a little bit. And because of that one kid, you always knew what the rules were. You knew what was right and you knew what was wrong. And so in order for us, as a society as a whole, to function, we've got to have deviant people to tell us where the line is. What is deviant and what is not. What is acceptable. Number two, enhancement of solidarity. What does that mean? It says, by collectively reacting against deviance, conforming members reaffirm their shared norms and values. It reaffirms of what we do, what we already do. It makes us feel stronger and makes us feel more confident in the rules that we are following. So, when we look at this and we think about prisoners and going to prison, we always think that's somebody else. We don't anticipate, I don't think there's anybody inside here in this room that anticipates being in prison at some point in time in their life. There may be somebody, there may be a couple of you, that end up, and it's probably not the person that you anticipate right now. I mean, that happens. But when we're going through life and we see people going to prison, we see people on the news, and they're in handcuffs and they're going to jail on cops or whatever. That for us it says, man, they deserve it, right? And when we say they deserve it, it makes us feel good about having to follow the rules all the time, right? Because do you get rewarded for following the rules all the time? Necessarily? No, you gotta live life. And so sometimes following the rules is tough. You'd really like to break the rules sometimes. You like to, steal something every once in a while. Like to speed down the road every once in a while, but you gotta follow the rules. Right? And when they get When somebody finally gets punished for breaking the rules, then it makes you feel better about what you've always been doing. Okay? Ms. Bree?
But on the flip side of that, I don't know if you're gonna like say this or not, but having deviant people can also like shine a light on the injustices and like certain rules or norms and things like that. So like people associate deviance with a bad thing, but it's not always bad.
Right, right. We'll get to that one in just a second. Number 4 is that one right there. Okay. Number 3 is diversion of discontent. One more thing versus the going back to the solidarity idea. The Salem witch trials is a good example to think about with the enhancement of solidarity. In that utopian type of society that they had, the Massachusetts Bay Colony, right? It's supposed to be perfect. Even in that society, they had to have somebody be deviant to reaffirm that what they were doing was right. Europe was too far away, right? They couldn't get the immediacy of the effect. They had to have somebody inside of their own community to blame and to say, hey, you're doing things wrong, to make them feel good about what they were doing. Okay? Diversion of discontent. You can think of it kind of like as a safety valve. When people are inside of society and the structure of society is made in a way in which they are stuck down at the bottom, and the alternative would be to lead a revolution and revolt against the social structure that's in place, right? But instead of leading a revolt, it's like a safety valve, and they go off and do something deviant then, right? Something else instead of leading a revolt and a revolution. Sound good? All right. So, diversion of discontent. You remember that safety valve out to the side. Okay. And some people do that. High school students do that. When you can't fight the system in high school, what do some high school students do in a deviant way? I see it all over the place inside the classroom. You guys don't necessarily are aware of this, but you write on the desks, you write on the walls.
Vandalize?
You vandalize. Yeah, vandalism is really a diversion of discontent, is what it is. Okay? Number 4. Identification of problems. What Ms. Bree was referencing there. Deviants can help identify social problems by signaling a defect in the social system. So something's wrong. We may have some issues with, say, truancy in a particular school system. And one way to approach it would be, well, these people are just bad people, irresponsible, lazy people. Another way to approach it would be, there's something wrong with this social context that is leading to an increase in truancy rates. And so, socially, we should be attacking what is the social problem rather than saying, hey, these people are just lazy that way, okay? So that's just one small example there of identification of problems. All right, dysfunctions of deviance. This is probably what we're more familiar with. First one, disruption of social order. So this one, you guys remember the guy that said that progress was inevitable? In society as a whole, the sociologist said that.
Is he a sultan?
He made a comparison between society and the human organism. Influenced by, Spencer's the guy, okay? So you can think of society as, always getting better and better and better and being more and more efficient and doing all these good things. Okay? But when you get deviance disrupts that social order. It disrupts that progress. It's kind of like an assembly line. Think of society as a whole as an assembly line. And the deviance is that idle worker, that worker that doesn't show up, and so nothing gets done. It just messes things up. Number 2, confusion of norms and values. What's an example of a deviant behavior that everybody gets away with it? What is it? Lying,
Speeding.
speeding.
Not everyone gets away with that.
Yeah, no one, not,
But a lot of people do it.
Some get caught.
some get caught.
Ones I had written down was like underage drinking or tobacco use.
Oh.
I know that one's not as popular as it used to be. But lying's a good one. I like
Vaping.
that idea. Was that?
Vaping underage.
Vaping, right? That's something that I really didn't have to think about. Cheating, as in cheating on your assignments that way. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay.
Keep going, guys.
So-
Cheating on your spouses, or not spouses, but relationships, because obviously that's pretty
Right.
normal.
Yeah.
So when that happens, and it happens often,
Interesting.
sometimes, and people get away with it, sometimes we don't know what is right and what is wrong, okay? We don't know where the line is, it makes it difficult. So it's kind of like you with driving down the road. Since everybody gets away with driving 5 miles and over, the speed limit, then you think, well, it's all right for you to drive 7 or 8 or 10 miles over the speed limit. Number 3, dysfunction, diversion of resources. Think about all the money we would be saving if we didn't have deviant people out there. All the money that we had to put forth towards our prison system, towards policing, towards different types of social programs to get rid of deviant behavior. All that money could be channeled in a different direction, say like healthcare or education, something like that to make life better. And the last one, violation of trust. For the most part, we trust each other as being social beings. We have to have relationships with one another. And with those relationships, we do develop trust. But when somebody becomes deviant, then there goes that trust. Think about the result of, I mean, you guys can't really think about it because you're so young now, but 9/11. When 9/11 took place, I was in college at the time. Anytime that you go to an airport and you stand in line to get on the plane, what are you doing while you're standing in line?
Checking at people's.
Yeah, you're looking around.
I'm on my phone.
I think that guy could be a terrorist. I think that I'll take the next flight. Alright? So that's what happens. You lost trust in other people that way. Okay. Think of if you're a rape victim, right? If you're a rape victim, you get around any other male, because we're assuming that's usually the way it happens. What happens? Are you going to trust them? I wouldn't trust anybody thereafter. Okay, so that's a big dysfunction of deviant behavior there. Any questions about the functions and dysfunctions of deviance? Nope. I really like that we go through this in this way because it really helps us to think about deviant behavior as more than just something that somebody does wrong. There are positives and there are negatives of deviant behavior. All right, one thing that I want you to do, hold on for a second, let me finish this. We got just a second here.